Have you ever dreamed of speaking English fluently? Not just reading or writing it, but actually thinking and talking like a native speaker? Maybe you've studied for years. You know the grammar rules by heart. But when someone speaks fast or asks you a question out of the blue, it all goes silent. Your mind blanks. You panic. And before you know it, the conversation is over. If that sounds familiar, I've got great news for you. You're not alone. And more importantly, you can change it. In just 6 months, I went from struggling to understand basic conversations to speaking English confidently with friends, teachers, and even strangers. Today, I want to share my full journey with you, including the mistakes, the breakthroughs, and the exact strategies I used to improve both my listening and speaking skills. So whether you're preparing for a job interview, planning to travel, or just want to finally speak without fear, let's dive into my story and discover how you can do the same. Before I could speak confidently, I had to go through the struggle phase, and trust me, it was real. I remember sitting in class, understanding every word in the textbook, but when the teacher said, "Now, talk to your partner," my brain would shut down. I'd smile nervously, say a few broken sentences, and wait for the other person to finish talking so I wouldn't have to respond. One time, a friend asked me, "Do you want to grab lunch later?" I panicked. I didn't know the word lunch yet, so I thought he meant dinner and replied, "Sure, but isn't it too early for dinner?" He laughed and corrected me, and I felt embarrassed. Another time, someone told me, "You need to chill out." I looked around for a fridge, thinking they literally meant get cold. These moments were frustrating. I felt stuck. But now I realize something important. Struggling doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're learning. The moment everything changed came after I failed an important English speaking test. It wasn't just any test. It was for a study abroad program in the US, something I had dreamed about for years. I thought I was ready. I knew hundreds of vocabulary words. I could write perfect essays. But during the speaking part, I couldn't answer simple questions. I froze. I sounded nervous and unsure. And I failed. That was the moment I realized I wasn't practicing English the right way. I was studying it like a subject, not living it like a language. So I made a decision. From that day on, I would stop hiding behind textbooks. I would start speaking every day, even if I made mistakes. I would train my ears to understand real conversations. And most importantly, I would make English part of my daily life. I set small goals. Talk for at least 5 minutes every day. Watch 1 English show per week without subtitles. I'll learn 10 new words and use them in real sentences. And slowly, things started to shift. Now, let's talk about the good stuff, the exact strategies that made the biggest difference for me. These are not just random tips. These are real methods I used every day, and they help me go from freezing up during small talk to thinking and speaking in English naturally. So, if you're ready to take your listening and speaking skills to the next level, let's dive in. Top tips that actually help me improve. Tip number 1. Immerse yourself in English. This was the most powerful shift I made. Instead of treating English like a subject you study once a day, treat it like the air around you.
Here's how.
I changed the language on my phone and apps to English. I watched shows and movies without subtitles, or with English subtitles only. I started thinking in English while doing daily tasks. I'm making coffee. It smells good. I need milk. The more I surrounded myself with English, the more natural it became. Tip number 2, speak every day, even if you're alone. You don't need a conversation partner to practice speaking. When I didn't have anyone to talk to, I talked out loud to myself. I described what I was doing. I'm walking to the store. It's sunny today. I practiced answering questions out loud. What did you do this weekend? I stayed home and read a book. I also recorded myself and listened back. That helped me notice my pronunciation mistakes and track my progress over time. And later, I used language apps like Tandem and HelloTalk to find native speakers to chat with online. Tip number 3, shadowing technique. Mimic native speakers. This is one of my favorite tools for improving both listening and speaking. Shadowing means repeating what a native speaker says, right after they say it. How to do it. 1. Choose a short clip from a movie, YouTube video, or podcast. 2. Listen closely. 3. Pause the audio and repeat exactly what they said. 4. Try to match their tone, speed, and pronunciation. At first, it felt awkward, but over time, my brain started recognizing patterns in speech, and my own speaking became smoother and more natural. Tip number 4. Learn vocabulary through context. Forget memorizing long lists of words. That doesn't work in real life. Instead, I learned vocabulary by using it in real sentences. For example, instead of just writing down delicious, I'd say, "This soup is delicious. I want to eat it every day." I grouped words by topics: food, travel, school, emotions, so I could use them together. I also used flashcard apps like Anki and Quizlet to review new words regularly, which helped me remember them longer. So far, we've covered how I immerse myself in English, practice speaking every day, use shadowing, and learn vocabulary through context. Now, let's dive into even more powerful techniques and also talk about how to deal with some of the most common problems learners face. Let's jump in. Tip number 5. Understand word roots, prefixes, and suffixes. This tip was like unlocking a secret code for me. Once I started recognizing word parts, I could guess the meaning of unfamiliar words without always needing a dictionary. Here are a few examples. Multi-dash means many, multilingual, multi-choice. Pre-dash means before, preview, prepaid. Ian refers to people or nationality, Canadian, musician. When I saw a new word like international, I could break it down. Inter equals between. Nation equals country. Al equals related to. So, international equals related to between countries. It made learning vocabulary faster and easier, and helped me understand complex words just by looking at their parts. Tip number 6. Use your imagination. I used to forget new words after just one day. But then I discovered something powerful: visualization. Instead of just memorizing definitions, I'd imagine real-life situations where I'd use the word. For example, when I learned the word curious, I pictured a cat poking its nose into everything. When I learned exhausted, I imagined someone collapsing on a couch after a long day. I'd create mental images and stories around the words, and suddenly, they stuck in my memory much better. Tip number 7. Practice with friends or study groups. At first, I avoided speaking with others because I was afraid of making mistakes. But once I joined an online conversation group, everything changed. We played vocabulary games, did role plays, and gave short presentations in English. Even if you don't have a group, try this. Find a study buddy online. Join free language exchange events. Or start a mini speaking club with friends who are also learning. Practicing with others not only makes learning fun, it builds real confidence. Tip number 8. Be kind to yourself. One of the biggest mistakes I made early on was being too hard on myself. Every time I made a mistake, I felt like I failed. But here's what I learned. Mistakes aren't failures. They're proof that you're trying. So instead of getting frustrated, I started celebrating small wins. If I understood a whole sentence someone said, high five. If I used a new word correctly, yay. If I finished a full conversation without panicking, huge win. And over time, those small wins added up. Common obstacles and how I overcame them. Of course, The road to fluency wasn't perfect. Here are some of the biggest challenges I faced and how I dealt with them. Fear of making mistakes. At first, I was terrified of sounding silly or being misunderstood. Then I realized everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. So I shifted my mindset. Instead of seeing mistakes as embarrassing, I started seeing them as lessons. Every time I messed up, I asked myself, what did I learn from this? How can I do better next time? That simple change made me more confident and less scared to speak. Forgetting vocabulary quickly. I used to learn 20 new words in one day and forget half of them the next. The solution? Active recall and spaced repetition. I used apps like Anki and Quizlet that showed me words again right before I were about to forget them. Also, I made sure to use new words in real conversations, not just write them down. Feeling overwhelmed. There's so much to learn in English: grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, listening, speaking. Sometimes I felt like giving up, but I learned to take it step by step. Instead of trying to learn everything at once, I focused on one thing each week. Week 1. Learn 10 travel-related words. Week 2. Practice asking questions. Week 3. Work on intonation and tone. Breaking things into small chunks made progress feel achievable. Lack of motivation. Some days I just didn't feel like practicing. So I reminded myself of my why. Why am I learning English? To make friends, to study abroad, to land my dream job. Whenever I lost motivation, I came back to my reason, and it pushed me forward. Hey everyone, welcome back to the final part of this series. So far, we've gone through my journey from struggling with basic conversations to speaking English confidently in just 6 months. We've covered immersion, daily speaking practice, shadowing, vocabulary building, word roots, imagination, study groups, and most importantly, being kind to yourself. Now it's time for something fun. Let's practice together. Let's do a quick pronunciation challenge. I'll say a sentence and you repeat after me. Ready? She sells seashells by the seashore. Go ahead. Say it out loud. Nice job. That was a classic tongue twister, and practicing these helps improve clarity and rhythm in your speech. Let's try one more. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How did you do? Leave a comment below and tell me. I tried the challenge and said, great work if you joined in. Keep practicing, and your pronunciation will get smoother every day. Let me wrap up by saying this. If I can go from making embarrassing mistakes like asking for iced coffee instead of iced coffee, to thinking and speaking in English fluently in just 6 months, then so can you. It's not about being perfect. It's not about never making mistakes. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. Every time you speak, even if it's just to yourself. Every time you listen to a podcast or watch a show in English. Every time you learn a new word and use it, you are growing. And that's what matters. So don't give up. Keep going because fluency isn't magic. It's just consistent effort, one step at a time. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more English learning tips and real-life stories like mine. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had an embarrassing English moment? What's your favorite tip for improving listening and speaking? Drop your answers in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're serious about improving your English, check the description below for links to the apps and resources I mentioned, like Anki, Quizlet, HelloTalk, and more. Until next time, keep speaking, keep learning, and remember, every mistake is a step closer to fluency. See you soon.